Welcome to Honestly, We're Learning, a podcast from ClearEdge, the marketing agency that also helps marketers grow their careers. Join Lesly Vickrey and Lesly Cardec as we explore the turning points that shape a person's professional story, the highs, the stumbles, and everything in between. We'll bring you candid conversations with leaders and rising talent, plus our own take on what's changing in marketing and recruiting today. Because behind every success story is a few lessons learned the hard way. And honestly, we're all still learning.
Hi.
Hi, Leslie. Or should I call you Elsie?
It's Elsie now. No, we were laughing for everyone's like, what are you talking about? We were on a call and we just massively confused people. So it's just when they're referencing us, I'm just going to be Elsie on Zoom call. So if you see me, I can't figure out how to do that. It's probably very simple. Well, congratulations to Grayson. I saw on your Instagram that he has a great role on Spam-A-Lot. So what's that about?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. He tried out for his first play. You know, he's a little actor. He loves to play the piano, sing, dance, perform, anything he can do to perform. So it's his first stage experience. I have to tell you, Leslie, it's been interesting for sure. Mainly, I always post about this, my own life lessons and experiences that come from being with Grayson, and he got a role. So they had to do a tryout. The tryout was sending in a tape, an audition tape, and he got the part as an ensemble. And when he got to the first practice, he said, "Mommy, I don't think I have any words. What does ensemble mean?" And I remembered reading that he could actually ask, and they were looking for people to be the backup cast member for different people, just in case they're out and so forth. And I said, "So why don't you ask about that if you want lines and whatever?" So I kept pushing him, I guess, to do more and not accept that the ensemble piece was great. Well, I had a parent actually say something to me. I said, "Oh, your kid has a speaking line. How did that come about?" And here I'm putting pressure on Grayson, ask for this additional part so you can get the line. And she said, "Well, not every kid made the play. It's really an honor to get an ensemble role or any role. And my kid's speaking role is like 2 words. It's not even really a line." And it hit me where another learning moment of she was right. Like, what an honor to get that ensemble role. And he kept asking me, "What does it mean to be ensemble?" And I had to think about it and really talk about how it's the glue of the play. It's the glue of a team. So think about all the parts we play on our team and relating it to work. We all play different parts. We all stand out. It could be one day I'm a CEO role, one day I'm in doing this, I'm doing that. We all wear, different hats at different times, but together we're the glue that makes it all work. So now I'm reflecting on that and saying, ensemble is fantastic. You're part of the glue that holds this whole musical together, and how wonderful you're up on stage singing and dancing, and you have these cues and what you're learning and all the actors and directors you get access to learn from. It's fantastic to even have a part and to be such an important part of the play. So once again, it's been a learning, growing moment for me. So yes, and a commitment. He's busy every day,
Yeah.
Monday through Thursday. It's 5:30 to 8:30, Sundays 11 to 5.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a real commitment for him too. And he loves it. I love watching him shine. But let me
Aw,
tell you, it's always full of learning moments
I
for sure.
love that. I had a coaching moment with my son too, whether it's through sports or through school. It's like when you don't get the outcome that you're looking for, whatever that is. I was him before. I used to be, really shy, and I can't ask questions or ask, any feedback really. And so one of the things that I coached my son on recently was if you really don't know why something happened, you need to ask. You need to ask and ask for that feedback, because how do you know what to work on to then step into it again? So long conversation, it's uncomfortable, and it's not something that a lot of people are innately, familiar with. But you have to ask. One of the things you always say is, if you don't ask, you don't know, and the answer will always be no. And so Always learning, that's for sure.
Today's guest is Ben Eubanks. And if you spend any time thinking about the future of work, HR technology, or what leadership really looks like in practice, you've probably felt his influence. Ben is the Chief Research Officer at Lighthouse Research and Advisory, where he leads research on how work is changing, from talent and leadership to technology shaping how organizations operate. He's the author of 5 books, including Artificial Intelligence for HR, which has become a go-to resource for leaders trying to move past the hype and actually understand how AI is impacting the HR profession. Ben is a 2-time best-selling author of The Payroll Promise and Talent Scarcity. Through his virtual event, HR Summer School, he's helped connect and inspire HR practitioners across more than a dozen countries with over 10 million minutes. That's incredible, Ben. Watched since it launched. And as if that weren't enough, Ben is the host of We're Only Human podcast and a global speaker and trusted voice in the industry. But what we really appreciate about Ben is that he brings a very human lens to big, complex topics. Outside of work, Ben is a dad to 5 kids. Ben, I'm honored to call you a friend and a colleague, and this is not our first rodeo, having taken the virtual stage together several times now, and we're so glad to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm pumped to be here, Leslie. Looking forward to the conversation today, sharing some different things. I love the setup that y'all have for this podcast and the show. And so I'm excited to get in some things that are not normal territory for me to talk about in front of this kind of audience.
Fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and dive in, Ben. We talk a lot on the show about leadership as something that's shaped over time and not something you arrive at fully formed. I can attest to that myself. And you, for example, started in the trenches as an HR practitioner and executive. So I want to start there. What's a moment when you look back, big or small, that really shaped the way you lead today and your journey to where you got to?
The thing for me that I think about was so impactful and so helpful to me was when someone saw what I was doing, and for whatever reason, I have no idea what sparked it, but they had a belief that it could go farther, that I could go farther, that the things that I was doing were going to have a bigger impact than I could see within my immediate perspective or field of vision. And so when I do my very first speaking event ever in 2009, it's because someone said, "Hey, I think you'd be great for this." I said, "I'm not ready." She said, "Well, you're on the agenda, so get ready." So like when those things pop up, like, I don't know. And in the moment, it was terrifying. But after I was like, that was wonderful. I could love to do that again and do it better next time. And when I had people reach out to me about an opportunity for a job at some point, and like, "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." And like, "Well, you better apply because I've been telling my boss that you're great." Like, okay, I need to be ready for this. And so people that believed in me before I was ready was one of the things that shaped me heavily, gave me opportunities, and also that I have tried to pass on and pay forward within my own sphere of influence over time, where I see someone doing something, I'm like, other people may not realize that. Let's highlight that so everyone sees what good looks like.
Yeah, I love that because it's a good reminder that how important it is to have, people in your corner pushing you to be
Mhm.
your best and, that doubt, that person on our shoulder that tells us that we're not good enough or we're not ready. And sometimes you just need that push over the ledge. So it's a good reminder. One of the things that we love about your work, Ben, is that you're not just studying the work, you're storytell around it. And every career kind of has its own, I guess you could say, arc. So how has the story you tell about your work and your role in it, evolved over time?
You know what? I want to say a couple different things. The big thing for me is the core of it hasn't changed over time, right? The setting has changed, but I'm trying to figure out the story narrative here. Like the plot hasn't changed, maybe. Like the key thing I'm trying to accomplish has not changed through all that. When I got started, the first time I wrote a blog post, almost 20 years ago now, the very first time, it was because I thought this may help inspire somebody else. That was the thing that caused me to turn on WordPress and try to figure it all out myself and teach myself this as someone who is not a techie. And the very first time I hit publish, it was someone else may find this valuable. And then a few years later, fast forward, and I was amazed when I figured out how to turn on analytics and realized there were 30,000 people a month reading these things that were being inspired. And that gave me the encouragement, like, I have to keep this up because apparently there's a need for this, there's a demand for this. And so the story for me, the key part of that story is I've always been striving towards if I am inspiring someone else, if I'm lifting someone else up, that is what I'm ultimately trying to accomplish. It's not just about getting other contracts. It's not just about getting on a stage and talking about whatever the company's found in our latest research. Those things matter. But if I don't encourage someone or inspire someone, then I'm not achieving that true north that really pulls me forward every day.
That's so powerful because again, it's more than just about you. It's about bringing, rising others up around you. And so one of the things that made me think about was how that usually comes with some friction, right? It's not this really smooth road we all wish it was, but growth, tends to come with a little bump. There's some bumps in the road. And growth tends to ask something of us before it actually gives us clarity. So can you share with the audience a recent challenge that stretched you either now or in the past and what it taught you?
The first thing that comes to mind when you ask that, there was actually a recent, we'll call it an interaction, shall we, that I had with someone online, that this person had watched me do a virtual keynote and then the next day was picking it apart on LinkedIn. And then a few months later, a piece of research came out related to the work they do, and they were picking it apart on LinkedIn publicly, just picking at these things just because. And I'm like, it's eating me up because, again, you hear my heart behind this. This is not just a thing I'm doing mechanically. They're picking apart what I believe in and care about deeply. And I learned early in my career, I can't respond to that emotionally. So I'm like, hey, listen, I sent them a note and just said, hey, listen, just remember, this is how I feed my kids. This is why I do this work. And if you have a problem, a challenge you want to address, please reach out. I'd love to debate you about this. I'd love to have a conversation, but picking it apart publicly, probably not the best way. It doesn't even make you look very professional overall. And so that nipped in the bud, hasn't happened again. And to me, it's one of those things, even the conversation we started out today, Leslie saying all the nice things, like, I'm a person, right?
Right.
I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I go to church, I do all these things that other people do. And people forget, like, sometimes that there's a person behind all of that stuff when you start to have some sort of following or whatever else. And the people that put the influencer label on, which I hate, but those sorts of things, they forget that I'm a person and I care about things, and I don't want to be, none of us would want to be on the receiving end of that. And people forget that sometimes.
All right. Well, kudos to you.
Yeah, I wonder
Right.
if did they actually respond or there was no response when you reached out?
There was kind of a, well, here, but ultimately it stopped. So I'm like, I don't even have to worry about what the full response was. If it stops,
Yeah.
then it stops. That's what matters most to me. I
Mhm.
learned early though in my career, I addressed this a very different way. My biggest regret as a recruiter, I've been recruiting for this position. We're talking to these candidates. I had one guy who had kind of gone back and forth, couldn't make a decision. And finally, I'm like, point blank, I'm sitting there making spaghetti. I've got a toddler hanging my leg, and I'm like, sending messages. Hey, listen, can you just let me know yes or no? Are you in? And he's like, I heard about your company. I'm not sure I want to work for a company. I've heard your culture's not very good. And again, he's attacking the thing that I care deeply about. This company was 2 years old. So we haven't had anybody quit the company yet. So no one's there to complain about the culture. There's no Glassdoor page, none of that. And my response was, we don't need someone like you anyway. I sent that right back to him. And immediately I was like, oh, I can't believe I did that. And I apologized. I went to the next day and told my boss, like, if you hear anything, I did this. I've already apologized. But I learned I can't respond emotionally to stuff like that because it's not the right response in the moment.
Right. Well, you lead with such passion, Ben. And we always say if you're not learning, you're not growing. So it's those learning moments and learning stances that turn
Yeah.
us into the leader we are today, kind of going back to the first question. And I just want to say good for you for saying something. People always ask us as we manage a lot of social media profiles, working closely with executives. And when you get comments or things that, do you comment, do you not? And when you fuel that publicly, it can really go awry. But
Mhm.
going behind the scenes and actually trying to have a professional conversation, I give you a lot of credit for doing that. You used a see it, say it moment, and also your passion. You are so passionate about it, and clearly you lead from the intention first, not you first. So the end result of what you're trying to get, which is one of the things I've always loved about partnering with you and seeing past. You never know what's happening in someone's life, and We all have things happening, if it's a toddler pulling on us or, business where, when it's a few years, when it's really tough, we all carry different stress at different ways, and finding grace within other people and ourselves is
Mhm.
really important. So I give you credit for not only the see it, say it, but leaning into that difficult conversation. So I want to stay with that moment for a second, just because not all lessons, feel good while we're learning them. So perhaps you have a lesson that you're actually in the middle of right now, something that potentially feels really uncomfortable, but it's super important.
I think this one, again, anyone that's listening that is a leader of people, especially if you are newer to that or that's become a recent thing, a thing for me that I'm working through it now is really trusting and delegating. One of the things that I've had to do intentionally over the last year, because when I see something lingering, I'm the one that just wants to jump in there, just fix it, just to get it accomplished, make sure it's taken care of. And I've had to slow down and just trust the people around me. But one of the ways I've done that is we bring people on that do more of the research and produce some of the speaking and things like that, like I do, that have a little bit of a personal stamp on it. When I do those things, personal flavor to it, is I've told them, listen, you have my permission. If I am telling you to do something that is putting my style on you, you have my permission to push back because I don't need another me here. Okay. Like we don't need a clone. But if it's a process thing, it has to be done this way. If I say, listen, it's just how it has to be done. But I've given them the freedom and the grace to push back whenever I'm telling them, hey, do this thing. That if it's a process thing, do it. If it's a style thing, they have the chance to push back and say, is that Ben's style or is that Lighthouse style? And then we can have a conversation about which one that actually is. But when it comes to delegating, that's part of what I worry about, what I am concerned about as a leader is will be done to the standard and expectations, what people expect of us. And I've got great people around me. We bring them on because they're great in the first place. And I've been working through letting go a little bit of that and trusting the good people that we brought on.
Well, that is something we could hold each other accountable on because I think any company trying to scale or grow, and we both are founder led,
Mhm.
companies, it's hard to let go of that control sometimes. But to your point, you really have to. I think it's setting the standard of what expectations are and holding people accountable to that. And then also saying, because I hear it a lot too, we've been in business almost 20 years, and I'll get, well, that's the Clear Edge way. That's how we've been doing it. And I'll push back and say, actually, I hired you to bring new ideas and maybe evolve and push what we're doing in different directions. Not to say what we were doing was wrong, just to say that could we be doing it differently, better, rethinking things. And basically, to your point, as a CEO founder, I'm open to those ideas and I truly mean it. And then it's that letting go piece, right? Like saying, okay, I really need to get let go. Leslie, you can attest to this. You watch me attempt to do this on the daily and delegate and all of the things. But it's one of the things that I believe holds leaders back when we can't. So holding each other accountable when we can do that, I think it's critical for all of us as leaders to do that.
Yeah, I think the other thing I just thought about was we were just speaking with Joni Viley and just the notion of the founder or the CEO knowing everything, right? And it's like you don't, right? And so you surround yourself with really smart people who you want different perspectives and you want them to push back because, like you said, Ben, you don't want two or three of you. How are new perspectives and new thought and new thinking gonna energize what you're doing? So I love that theme and it's carrying itself through through all of our sessions. So I want to move in a little bit of a different direction. You sit at the intersection of ideas and responsibility and influence. I know we talked about that word influence, but you do. You're an influencer, whether you you like it or not, and that can be energizing, but also feel heavy. And I was listening to your latest podcast episode with Dr. Carrie Miller on when AI crosses the line from productivity tool to cheating, and with AI being infused in everything. There's not one day we don't hear the word AI. It's
Mhm.
such an important topic when considering how it applies to our everyday lives. And so I know that in marketing and the broader industry, this is a topic that's so top of mind. And again, we can't go a day without referencing it. So, what's the part of your work that keeps you up at night? And is it motivating? Does it worry you? What's your thought on that?
The thing for me that really keeps me up is mostly like waking up at 3 in the morning with an idea and then not being able to put that away and having to go figure that one out. The thing that gets me, I actually wrote about this on LinkedIn just this week, is that we talk about AI and all these technology changes, everything else there. And we talk about it like we've solved all the stuff where we know how humans work. And let's go on to the other stuff. We're like, we still have no clue, many of us, how to drive a behavior, how to communicate a thing that's hard, how to influence someone that doesn't want to be influenced. Those human dynamics are still so unknown and so unexplored. Every single day, we learn something new about how the brain works or about how people interact in certain situations. And I was challenging the community that I reached, saying, listen, you can talk all you want to about the AI stuff, but make sure you don't forget these other skills because these matter greatly, potentially even more so in a world where we have to really balance out automation and people and the work that we're getting accomplished. So for me, the thing that keeps me up at night or wakes me up early in the morning is there's always a new question to ask. There's always something new to learn, something new to discover. And as someone who does research, I love doing that. The part that I'm always trying to filter it through, though, is this just a curiosity? Is this an abstract thing? Or is this if someone knew this, they would make a better decision tomorrow than they did yesterday? And how do we go find that answer for them? And so that's a big focus for me is how to get those answers and share them back with HR leaders, talent leaders, learning leaders, people who are making business decisions about their talent because I want them to be smarter at those decisions.
Mm. Your brain is moving at the speed of AI, Ben. I can see it. It's like so fast. And that is something I think that we can lean into, obviously, is supplementing, but that human piece of it can't be replaced. And to your point, which I love, and the intention of this, we're always learning and growing as humans, as
Mhm.
people. And that's one of the most important things we have to keep in mind and hold on to as we continue to evolve. So I'm going to play into that a little bit, but zoom out from work and come into the more kind of personal side. So leadership doesn't just come from titles or roles, it comes from who we are when no one's watching us, Ben. What is something that you're working on personally? Again, not professionally. I want to hear the personal side that really influences how you show up as a leader.
The big thing for me is, as you just heard from that little rant that I shared, I am a solver. I want to know all the things. I want to have the data points. I want to make the decision. I want to be able to say, here's the thing to do. And in a work context, that's wonderful. In a family context, sometimes it's really hard. There's a great book that came out recently by Charles Duhigg called Super Communicators. And he talks about how every conversation should be seen as a sort of negotiation. Know what the terms are before you enter it. Because when my wife comes in, is talking about a tough day she had at work, she may not want me to say anything, but wow, that's really hard. What do you want for dinner? Right? That may be all she wants. But I may hear that and say, well, here's the 3 things you should go do to solve that. And it's going to make it all better. And the data back this up, actually. Here's a new study that she doesn't want any of those things. She just wants a little bit of emotional support in that moment. And for me, one of the big things that's shifted that for me in the last year or two that really have made me pay attention to it more, we just adopted our daughter. She's 4 years old and she is autistic. My other 4 children are not. And so that has created a new layer on how I think about the language I use, the interactions we have, even things that seem so simple and straightforward are very different. For example, if I'm like, hey, would you draw your shapes? And she sits down and she holds the pencil like she's holding a knife to stab someone. I'm like, hey, you're not holding the pencil right. She heard me say, put it in your right hand. And so she'll put it in her right hand, even if she has trouble with her right hand. And so I'm like, I got to say it a different way. Hey, you're not holding that properly. And so those little things in my language have bubbled up to the conversation I have with others and what are the points of the conversation. So a lot around the communication piece is the part that I'm getting at there.
Mhm.
I feel like the conversation with your wife and answering with what do you want for dinner might solve all issues that I
But you have
that I have. Just a side note. That was very smart. Thank you
Well,
for
and I
sharing.
think to your point though, like sometimes it's hard to see the nonverbal cues.
Mm,
Yeah.
And when
yes.
we're talking to people, and by the way, congratulations
Yeah.
on the adoption.
Thank
And
you.
I read about the story on LinkedIn, and we could probably do a whole episode about your journey and so many friends either attempting to foster, adopt, or fosters that didn't turn into adoption, and, the celebration, the heartache, all of the things that go along with that. What a blessing for your daughter to have you and your
Congratulations.
family, and for you to go through that. So thank you for sharing that as well. I'm getting choked up, Ben. I know you're a family man, and your faith and what you do for the business and the community. And it's just really appreciated. And I love that you share that publicly. The cues that we can go for, I say this a lot too with communication. It's, what do you need from me right now? And
Mhm.
I'm working on this with my son too. So on the personal side, we have a race coming up this weekend, a ski race. And last year he didn't place. It was his first time racing. And he was so upset and just throwing, he has us watch these crash out kid videos. He was a crash out kid in that moment, just not happy. And I had a really hard time dealing with it. I didn't know how to communicate with him. And the verbal cues said, Mom, you need to be, I'm a fixer. I need you to, fix this, be there for me, tell me how great all these things. And I had to learn really, sometimes the hard way, you know, do you need me just to listen? Do you need me to help you fix it? Do you need me to hug you, tell you I love you? What do you need from me? And figure out, sometimes they don't even want you to ask that. You need to pay attention to the cues and know sometimes too. And it's really, really tricky and hard. So
Mhm.
communication is everything,
Yes.
right? If it's at work, at home, in your personal life, it's something, to your point, we're constantly learning and growing in. And I know myself, I am too.
That's job security for you, right? People,
Yeah,
companies need to know that just as well as leaders need to know that.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
That's a good reminder for me too. So thank you for sharing. There's often a gap between also how we see ourselves and how others see us. I was just
Mm.
having this conversation with someone on my team earlier this morning. So I'm just curious, what's helped you personally bridge that gap and just show up so authentically, which you do. I mean, you're so authentic, especially as, your platform continues to grow.
I met someone at a conference a few months ago, and we were chatting there, and he said, we just paused in the moment. He said, "You know what? So and so is right." It's like, "Oh, like I didn't know you knew them, a mutual friend." I was like, "What do they say?" He said, "You're the exact same person you are in person
Mm.
as you are online." And he said, I didn't really believe that you would be." He's like, "You're too nice." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm from the South. Maybe that's part of that. I don't know." But I said, like, that is what I would hope for. I don't have enough mental bandwidth to be a different person, to have a persona, to have some sort of different alter ego when I'm not working. That's just too much. So the same level of endless curiosity, the same level of like fiery passion for certain things. It's the same thing that I bring when my kids are like, "Hey, I've got to work on this thing for history." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I love that. Let's talk about that. How can I help you? What do you need?" Like that same level of passion and excitement and curiosity that feeds into how I share on a live stream or how I'm interacting on a podcast. It's the same thing that I bring when I'm at home with my kids. And the from the people that have this different approach, that have a separate sort of, this is who I am when I'm doing those sorts of things online. Like, I don't know how they do it. I just don't have the mental bandwidth to do that, and keep track of when and where. So for me, it's just be curious, be passionate, and the rest of the things are going to be what they are. But I can't hide that about me, and I wouldn't want to change it ultimately.
That's the best compliment, that the compliment that person gave you. That's, more than you could ever ask for.
I know.
So, yeah.
Mhm. And guess what? It's fantastic to be a nice person. So we need more nice in this world. So I would say keep being nice, keep being you. All right. As you look ahead, Ben, what's in your work, your leadership, or your life, kind of more broadly? What is something you're actively trying to create right now?
For me, the big thing right now for me, I'm thinking about for the coming year is I'm working on the next book. I'm thinking through that. The idea for this book came to me in 2020. So I've been sitting on it for a while, and finally had the time. After the last book came out, my wife was like, "Listen, can you just take a breather, take a minute, no more books for a little while." So I took about 6 months off, and now have been this pent up energy, and I'm ready to start writing this next book, which is about, so it's sort of about the personality slash work styles of people that work in the people profession, and the work that best suits them. I meet so many people that are like, I want to get out of this sort of career because it's not a fit for me. And you find out that the culture around them is not a fit for them, or the type of work they're doing is not a fit, but they could shift over one step and be, instead of being a recruiting, being in learning, and they'd be thrilled with that work as a trainer versus being a recruiter. And so the next book is going to be around how to do that. We'll have an assessment paired with it. And I'm so pumped about that because it's going to help more people find more satisfaction in the work they're doing and more joy, and bring that joy, pass it on to the people they're serving every day.
Right. I love seeing the thread of your early Ben career, recruiting, HR, all of the things continue to be a thread through everything you do today, including the
Mm.
book and everything you just described. It's what makes you an expert in this space. So thank you for sharing that. And I can't wait to see the third book.
I know, me too. What's the timing?
Or the next.
Oh my goodness, don't
The
pressure me
pressure's
now.
on you when you put that out.
Yeah. I I am early on in the manuscript, so that one's still got some time to go. But my expectation is it's going to come out in 2026.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, good. We'll keep an eye out for it for sure. So before we wrap, we want to let people know where to find you, how to connect with you. What's the best place for them to follow your work and all the things that you do?
So a couple different places. TheBenEubanks.com will give you access to social links and books and some of the other sorts of things, some of the other work that I do, a little more of the background and bio. LHRA.io is for Lighthouse, where I spend the majority of my days working, uncovering those things I talked about earlier, the future of work trends, all those sorts of things. So you can always reach out to me as well on LinkedIn if you want to follow me or keep up with some of the things we're sharing, whether it's a personal story about what I'm learning as a dad of 5, or some of the new things that are happening when it comes to AI in the workplace. A little bit of everything can be found there.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Ben. This has been so fun. I
Thank you all so
appreciate,
much.
we all appreciate your time and we've learned so much. That's the best thing about hosting this podcast is, we're learning, which is the title, and
Yeah.
appreciate you educating us and helping us feel grounded in the work that we do and giving back to others. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben. We just finished our second podcast. Congratulations, with Ben Eubanks. And I think we're going to recap our top 3 takeaways. Is that right?
There was so much in that episode too, and it's just the second one. So it's so exciting. I mean, for me, when I think about what stood out, one of them was it's actually a theme that came up with Joni. It was the notion of delegation and
Mhm.
how even at the top as a founder, the CEO, you don't know everything, and nor should you know everything. And so it's
Right.
the importance of just delegating and having a really strong team to surround yourself with, and the notion of why do you want multiple people that are just like you, because then it's, lack of diversity and perspective and thought. And so really just trusting in your team and just knowing that everyone brings something so special to the table, and it's okay to let go, which is so hard. But it's an important lesson.
Yeah, it is, especially as people who tend to like to control things. We have to be able to delegate and trust the team and really mean it and show them that we mean it. You can
Mhm.
set the foundation and the stage of what your expectations are and accountability, but you also need to give some leeway and room for people because we're all learning and growing, right? It's the intention of this podcast. So I love that. And you're right. It seems to be a common theme. Another common theme that I picked up on, I'm curious your thoughts on this, is really around the confidence piece. Not that Ben does not have confidence, it's more around, in his case, what we see in ourselves isn't always the same as what others see in us. So, kind of being that influencer that he is, starting out in HR and recruiting, and then kind of growing his way up into really respected researcher, public speaker, and that not always being where, maybe he saw himself, but growing into that. I know you and I feel similarly on that. And he made a comment about someone saying, wow, I met you and you're exactly who you are in person as I see online. And I love that. I'm going to throw a butt in here, but that same person I think said, but you're too nice. And I always hear that and think of, myself
Yeah.
in leadership. And when I know people mean well when they're giving compliments, but sometimes, why is that a bad thing to be a nice leader? It comes across as like, well, that's a negative. You should change that. And, people have told me I get emotional. I got emotional on the podcast.
Yeah.
You shouldn't cry. You shouldn't be this or that. And, at the end of the day, I'm going to be this is who I am as a leader. And people are either attracted to that and want to stay at the company and work with it and work with us as clients or not. So I love that Ben is really nice. And he truly is
Yeah.
super nice.
I feel like that's a superpower. I don't know. I feel, you're human, right? And it's just,
That's what it is.
it's
Yes.
hard. Like, how do you put up those walls and just, and not be that way in all facets of your life? The other thing that stood out, was about communication cues and just how everyone's different in the ways that make sense to be communicated to. Just the non-verbal cues. Gosh, that is so telling in itself. I mean, just being aware that, people need to be communicated to differently, and what they need may change from time to time, and just being cognizant of that.
Yeah. And sometimes asking, and sometimes we've got to try and figure it out the best we can and know in each situation. And every person's different, right? And what they like, let alone in those moments of what they need. In communication, Ben mentioned, difficult conversations too. So making what could be a difficult conversation comfortable. He talked about the example on LinkedIn with someone kind of posting negative things, and he went offline and try to have a conversation with that person in that kind of see it, say it moment, and, not letting kind of his emotion sit for a minute and then reacting and having that conversation. So also thinking about, how do I make what could traditionally be seen as a difficult conversation or uncomfortable conversation comfortable? And sometimes it's taking down those barriers by, just being really open and honest and, yourself, that human side, like you
Yeah,
said.
that was a good reminder. I love that you brought that up, because it's a good reminder, because I mean, we're ruminators, and you sit there for 2 weeks stewing on something that, you're probably exaggerating or taking it out of context, or, could have been resolved with just reaching out directly and talking through it. So that's all good lessons.
Ruminating, you're working on it.
I know.
I sent someone a text message, someone I really look up to, and they didn't respond for weeks and then just responded. But can I tell you, those weeks I kept thinking, did they respond and I didn't see it? I'm going to go back and check and see. And no, and what I should have done is just reached out.
Yeah.
And it's a really good reminder.
Yeah.
Always learning on these
I
lessons.
know. That's why I love this podcast. Yeah, it's a good reminder that we're all a work in progress. Well, that's a wrap on our second episode. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Honestly, We're Learning. If you liked what you heard, you can drop us a like, review, or comment. And if you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.